Hello, this is American Immigration Part 2 from America's Story 2. America has always held the promise of a brighter future, even though many immigrants had an extremely difficult time upon their arrival here. The opportunities they could find in America prompted people to continue flooding in. Ellis Island medical inspections. The medical inspections at Ellis Island were quick because there were so many people to process. Doctors would give immigrants a 6-second physical when the newcomers were glanced over for obvious medical conditions. If the doctors noted a potential problem, they wrote symbols in chalk on the person's clothing. Roughly 15 to 20% of the immigrants at Ellis Island did not pass this initial examination and were pulled aside for a more thorough check. As we are learning, even though America was thought of as the golden land of opportunity, life was hard here for most new arrivals. Many European immigrants were coming from war or poverty-stricken countries. Many of them were refugees trying to escape from the tyranny of unfair governments. Tyranny is when a government controls all areas of its people's lives. Most of these immigrants had very few earthly possessions. The typical immigrant family had the clothes on their backs, and if they were fortunate, one other set of clothes. They carried whatever food they would need for the voyage. Have you ever seen a picture of the Statue of Liberty? Or maybe some of my young friends hearing the story have seen in real life. This 305-foot tall statue, including her pedestal, stands proudly in New York Harbor. The Statue of Liberty was a gift from the people of France in honor of our country's liberty. The Lady Liberty was dedicated in 1886. And I haven't been on Liberty Island, but I've seen it. Imagine with me that you are standing on the deck of the ship that brought you from your homeland. As we come closer to New York Harbor, fellow passengers crowd in around us, pressing against the railing. Every eye is straining to see through the fog. Who will be the first to see the lady? There, rising out of the fog, we see her, the famous lady. She stands tall, with her torch raised high, as if to light our way to this new land. We have been told that at her feet lay broken chains, symbolizing the freedom in America. All around us, people are pointing and talking. There are more than a few people hugging, with tears of joy glistening on their cheeks. We can each feel each other's hearts pounding as our hands hold tightly to each other. America, the land of freedom and promise, lies before us. But first, we must pass inspection at Ellis Island Immigration Station. Not everybody had to go through this process. Wealthier immigrants were exempt, but the rest of us are going to have to go through. As the ship pulls up to the dock and the gangplank is lowered, families are gathering their few belongings. They know they are walking off this ship into their new life. First, we must all go through inspection. We will be closely inspected for lice. That is not something we are too worried about. Neither of us have head lice. We will also have to endure a physical checkup to make sure we are healthy and not carrying any contagious diseases. We wait in line patiently. We are both a little hungry. We finished our food supply this morning. 4 hours later, it is our turn, and we are nervous as we step up. The family just before us got turned back because the little boy had a fever. We will have to spend the night and try again in the morning. Though they will have to spend the night and try again in the morning. We passed the inspections. We are thrilled. As we leave the Ellis Island inspection station, we stop at a tiny cafe to get some supper. We are both very hungry by now. We will eat and ask someone for directions to our next destination. We are fortunate to have a place to stay for a while. Our uncle back in Ireland has an elderly friend who lives here and is willing to let us stay at his home until we can find jobs and a room to rent. As we eat, we listen to the conversation around us. We recognize many faces from our ship, and it seems that most of them have no idea where they are going to spend this cold, rainy night. We smile at the little boy across from us. He looks so tired. The waitress tells a group of exhausted families that there is an elderly woman who owns a boarding house 2 blocks from the cafe. This lady welcomes newcomers, and especially ones that come from Ireland. She has enough room to host 10 families, one family per room. Included in the small price for the room is a hot bath and a hearty breakfast in the morning. We see many relieved looks on the tired faces around us. The waitress also hands out small pieces of paper with an address printed on it. She tells us that she is part of an Irish labor union and that this is the address to a tenement house that has openings for renters. For the next morning, after a good night's sleep and a steaming bowl of porridge, we decide to go see the tenement house. We are shocked at what we find. The brick building we are standing in front of is 7 stories high and sandwiched between 2 other identical buildings on either side. In fact, the entire city block is made up of a solid cube of these buildings, with scarcely enough room to walk between them. Our gaze moves up the side of this building, following a rickety staircase, meandering this way and that way. We have never seen anything like this in our lives. Above our heads, laundry flaps on lines stretch from the building in front of us to the building across the street on the other side. The stench of garbage and sewage makes it hard to breathe. This is one of America's famous apartment buildings. This is the wonderful tenement designed for safety, fresh air, and light. We walk to the door of the manager's office. The man shows us the 2-room flat that is available. The one filthy bathroom on this floor is shared by 4 families. The manager explains to us that there are over 20,000 buildings like this in Manhattan, and there are plans for many, many more. Almost 750,000 immigrants live in this type of apartment building. We decide that we will gladly stay with our uncle's friend a little bit longer. As we walk back to his house, we see whole neighborhoods that look like they belong in different countries. How curious! The smell of Italian food wafting down the street to our noses is a welcome change from the stench of the tenement section. These people have shops and restaurants with their cozy apartments above them. Someone is singing in Italian and playing a concertina. Children are laughing and playing while their mothers stand in a group and talk. If we didn't know better, we would have said this was a scene from a typical day in a small town in Italy. Another street is all Chinese people. The unfamiliar but interesting smell of their food comes strongly on the breeze. A Chinese dragon kite glides in the air, seeming to pull small boys on the other end. This is a very interesting country, this America. We have heard it said that America is the melting pot of the world, and we are beginning to believe it. Where else in the world would there be a little Italy and a little China within the same city? We know that there are also Jewish, Polish, Norwegian, Irish neighborhoods, to name just a few. At the corner market, we stopped to buy a bag of small potatoes. Unlike the ones we have seen in Ireland, these are firm and red. It will be comforting to have supper that reminds us of home. Ellis Island, countries with most immigrants to the United States, 1860 to 1899. Number 1 is Germany with 3.5 million. Second is United Kingdom with 2.25 million. Third is Ireland with 1.9 million. Next is Canada with 938,000. Then Italy with 927,000. Then Sweden with 729,000. then Russia with 670,000, then Austria with 530,000, then Norway with 371,000, and lastly China with 268,000. Not all of these immigrants passed through Ellis Island, and many immigrants also came from other countries. But people from these countries accounted for over 12 million immigrants in a period of roughly 40 years. 1. After arriving on Ellis Island, immigrants received number tags. They left their baggage behind in a separate room. 2. The immigrants then went up the stairs on the way to a quick medical examination. Part of the exam was watching them walk up the stairs to see if it gave them trouble. 3. The 6-second physical was a fast look over for each immigrant to see if there were any obvious health problems. 4. The immigrants were talked individually with an inspector. They were asked several questions about who they were and where they were from, and their answers were compared with records from the shipping company. 5. If the immigrant successfully passed these examinations, he or she was allowed in. Immigrants then got their baggage back. There were also offices available for immigrants to buy train tickets or exchange money in preparation for the next stage in their journey. The making of the Statue of Liberty. The idea came from Edouard de la Boulaye. The Frenchman wanted to send a monument to liberty to the United States in the 1860s. In the 1870s, a sculptor, Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi, was commissioned to create the statue. Bartholdi himself created this miniature replica of the statue in his workshop to show how it was constructed. The head of the statue was on display in a French park before everything was shipped to America. The same man who designed the Eiffel Tower, Alexandre Gustave Eiffel, designed the Statue of Liberty's interior structure. Plaster was added to the interior framework, and then the plaster was covered with copper. After the parts were shipped to the United States, the statue had to be put together. Building the statue in France took several years, but then it had to be sent to the United States in 214 different crates. Ellis Island was the gateway into the country during this time period of history. How do immigrants come into this country now? Existing immigration laws have been criticized and sometimes ignored for a long time. There are always those who believe that anyone who wants to be an American should be able to come in. But what would occur in reality if this was allowed to happen? America was made by immigrants, and immigrants continue to help America grow. What exactly do newcomers to America have to do to legally become citizens? So here's a picture of immigrants arriving at Ellis Island in the 1900s and new citizens taking the oath of allegiance in 2013. And that is all for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it.